Official just confirming they are sending equipment and personnel to New Jersey, where the governor has written to President Biden asking for more help trying to identify drones after weeks of sightings, which have since been reported in more states, including New York, Maryland, Connecticut, and California, even as the federal government continues to say there's no evidence of any public safety threat.
I'm not going to lie to you or to the American people, and I'm not going to say we know something when we don't.
And National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby tells Fox News,
"We would never, ever stoop to think that an American citizen was crazy or nuts because of what they're seeing and what they're documenting. We're taking that imagery seriously, and we're doing the best we can to analyze it, and we encourage people to come forward if they have additional sightings and imagery."
Some members of Congress say local and state lawmakers should have the authority and the tools to identify and counter drones. The probe of a healthcare executive's murder in New York City gets more information from San Francisco.
Days before Luigi Mangione's arrest, San Francisco police contacted the FBI to say they recognized the suspect from a missing persons report filed by his mother. Kathleen Mangione telling San Francisco officials she last spoke with her son in July. The 26-year-old is being held without bail on firearms and other charges in Pennsylvania.
Fox's Christine Goodwin. Mangione is fighting extradition to New York to face a murder charge for the death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. His defense attorney arguing prosecutors haven't proven Mangione was in New York on the day of the murder. The CEO of United Healthcare's parent company writing a New York Times opinion piece that the healthcare system doesn't work as well as it should and that they want to help make it better, but that no employees should have to fear for their and their loved ones' safety. A mixed finish on Wall Street. The Dow down 86 points, but the NASDAQ finishes higher. America is listening to Fox News.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity's stolen, their U.S.-based restoration specialists will fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code CLAY. Visit LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
William is one of millions of Americans who uses GoodRx to save on the cost of their prescriptions.
My oldest daughter, Camilla, 2 days old, she had to have open heart surgery. All of a sudden, she's on 5 different medications. It adds up at the end of the month. Me and the pharmacist got so tight. She said, GoodRx save you a lot of money. Saving that extra $200-300 a month. We're able to do all these extra activities, so it puts less stress on our household, and it puts less stress on our pockets.
Download the free app or visit GoodRx.com and start saving today. GoodRx user compensated for their time. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance.
A group of banks is suing the Biden administration to block new limits on overdraft fees.
A rule announced this week by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau would limit how much banks can charge customers for overdrawing accounts, part of President Biden's push to eliminate so-called junk fees. The CFPB says the nation's largest banks take in about $8 billion a year in overdraft charges. The new rule would not take effect until October of next year, after the Trump administration takes office. Still, the Consumer Banks Association and other financial institutions filed a lawsuit, arguing the administration is exceeding regulatory authority and asking courts to prevent the rule from being implemented. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The U.S. Supreme Court agrees to hear a business-backed challenge to federal regulations in a dispute over California's standards for vehicle emissions. The justices will hear an appeal filed by fuel producers who object to a waiver granted to California by the EPA in 2022. That waiver lets the state set more stringent emission limits than the national standard. One NFL player may be out of a job after refusing to enter a game when he lost his starting position.
A year after playing in the Super Bowl, the 49ers are now on the brink of missing the playoffs, falling to 6-8 after last night's loss to the LA Rams. And signs of frustration might be spilling over as linebacker Devondre Campbell apparently refused to go into the game in the third quarter and walked back to the locker room in the fourth with a towel over his head. Afterwards, multiple players were clearly frustrated with Campbell, including tight end George Kittle, who called it immature.
Fox's Greg Thompson. San Francisco 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan now says Campbell will not be part of the 49ers for the final 3 weeks of the season, and that the team is still working through the options of how to deal with him. Again, the Dow and the S&P finish lower, but the NASDAQ gains 23. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Christmas in Tolono is coming on Saturday, December 14th, with 2 places to shop local vendors and artisans at the Masonic Hall and the Town Hall between 9 and 3. Plus, you can get pictures with Santa at Arbor Rose, 1:30 to 3:30, including cocoa and cookies at 503 South Bourne Street. The Tolono Historical Society has an open house at 101 East Holden across from the post office between 1 and 4. Plus, Mary Beth Farms will be located at the Tolono Public Library with their horse and carriage rides. Please make your reservations as you visit tolonofunday.org. And don't forget the Tolono Presbyterian Church is having their youth group do a Play It For, the Not So Silent Night at 104 East Vine Street. The big tree lighting ceremony begins after 5 with the cocoa, cookies, and carols. The lighting will take place when Santa arrives at 6:30. It's Christmas in Tolono. Learn more on the Tolono Fun Day Facebook page or visit tolonofunday.org.
Hey, what's up? Happy Friday. It is The Drive with Tame Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk.
Dante doesn't care about you enough to wish you happy birthday in person, I guess.
Not in person, no. He did shoot a text my way. He called me old, which, I don't know, I'm 34. It's all about perspective, Kyle. To Kyle Tosk, who's currently in school.
That does seem kind of old
That
to
seems
me.
pretty old,
Yeah.
To others out there, I think they would take being 34 again. So, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm feeling good. Happy, blessed, all that.
Happy birthday, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And hopefully for all my Illini fan friends out there, they'll have some celebrating. Not on my behalf, but because of the Illini basketball team tomorrow. It's a special time where there's only so many of these, Kyle, where number one comes to town. And I had to, in fact, remind Brownderwood that it's been 11 years since the number one opponent has walked into that building over there at State Farm Center and played. It was the Tyler Griffey moment, the buzzer beater against Indiana. Of course, they're still playing that highlight, the court storm, and all of that to this day. So we'll see if Illinois has a memory to make tomorrow. State Farm Center, I was digging up some stats for an article I'm going to write, and we'll talk all about this matchup. Illinois against the number one ranked Vols. They're 9-0. They are just so impressive defensively, and that seems like year in, year out with Rick Barnes, so athletic. All of that. And then Chaz Lanier is shooting the heck out of the ball, and they've got a lot going for them, obviously, is why they're number one. The return of the home-and-home game, you played them in Knoxville last year, Dalton Connect versus Terrence Shannon. I don't know if in the moment we knew how special of a 1v1 matchup that was. 2 teams that went to the Elite Eight and lost to squads that ended up playing in the national championship game, UConn for Illinois and Purdue for Tennessee. Anyways, so the State Farm Center opened in 1962. I believe that's correct. 1963, okay. It's when the Illini basketball program started playing games over at State Farm Center. This will be only the 8th time since then that an opponent has been number one when they've played Illinois in that building. So it's been a rare occasion. A handful. We can go through all of them if you want to. The most recent, again, 2013, John Gross's first season at Illinois. Tom Crean and then the number one ranked Hoosiers. Tyler Griffey layup against Victor Oladipo, Cody Zeller, Yogi Ferrell. And another really memorable one in fairly recent memory. Kyle may not have been born yet. The Wake Forest game. Were you alive for that one?
I was less than a year old.
Crazy. Chris Paul and company coming to town. Illinois number 5 in the AP poll going into that game. By the end of that week, the next week they were number 1, and they didn't lose that, give that up throughout the remainder of that regular season. So we'll see what this Saturday has in store. 4:30 tip on Fox, and just a massive opportunity for really both teams. I mean, for Tennessee on the road against Illinois, if they have the season that they've been having and continue on forward. You imagine, no doubt, a quad one opportunity. And then for Illinois' standpoint, against the number one team in the country, I think they're number 2 in the KenPom net. I would imagine they're number 1 or number 2. Last time I checked, I think they were number 2. But just a big time chance, and one for fans' standpoints. You beat number 1. That's a memory that lasts on for a while for sure.
You bring a team into your home building on a Saturday afternoon with the way that place is going to be fired up tomorrow. That's an unbelievable opportunity, and one that you need to take advantage of. You need to come to play and at least give yourself a chance, because I get that a loss to Tennessee tomorrow is not going to change much. That's a team that might go to a Final Four. But when you have a home game like that, I kind of think you should win that game with where Illinois is at. I think that's a game that you should enter expecting we're going to have a good chance to win this one. And it would be an unbelievable win for this team, one that would hold up till March, and also obviously what the scene could look like. I'd expect that there's going to be another court storm coming if Illinois gets that one done.
I would imagine so. No doubt about it. I wonder when the first Orange Crusher is going to line up. I don't know if they're sending out an advisory so they don't get too cold in the overnight, although some media members were telling me it's going to be warmer tomorrow, which is good to hear for their sake. Maybe some rain after the game, but I've said it before, and apologize if you're like, you told this story not too long ago. When number 1 Ohio State came to town in 2011, Jared Sullinger was a freshman. That was a highly ranked, obviously number 1 Thad Matta team that they ended up playing in the Sweet 16. Didn't go as far as maybe they could have, but that's an early January game where Illinois brings them into town, and because it was in January, you had the lineup start at Huff Hall at 3 a.m. was when you first could start lining up, and they did it at Huff so that you didn't have to be outside in the cold, and some people just went straight from the bars over to Huff Hall and rode that wave all the way through the end of the game before they laid it down to go to sleep and catch some Z's. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but I would imagine it's going to be an early start for the line, and it's going to be crazy. I probably wrap around as far as it's ever wrapped, and just to know that it's going to be packed in there solid and loud and all that. I remember going to the game with my dad against Wake Forest when I was in middle school, and one of those where like you didn't sit down the entire game. Like there was not 1 second of gameplay that I can remember that was in my seat. I think you sat down during TV timeouts, which tells you, it was number 1 versus number 5. It just mattered so much. And yeah, I look on the net rankings right now, Tennessee number 2, Auburn number 1. But this is, like you said, the stat that I'm about to give will show that, but also just in general, if you're familiar enough with college basketball, you see number 1 when they go on the road, and it doesn't even just have to be number 1. It can just be a highly ranked team. They get beat on the road quite a bit. Like the dynamic changes. It's supposed to be really, really hard to go into an opposing building, especially against a team as talented as Illinois with an environment such as Illinois. Not everywhere does number 1 come to town and they sell out. Not everywhere does that happen, and that is such an imposing student section and crowd to go against, and the momentum that can be bubbling over in that building.
Heck, number 1 Kansas just went on the road twice a week ago, lost both games pretty easily.
Yeah, you're right.
Now you can argue whether Kansas is number 1 material. I think Tennessee is a better team than them. But
yeah.
Creighton and Missouri aren't better than this Illinois team.
No, I'm with you on that. Illinois all-time 3-22 against the AP number 1 overall team. All 3 of those wins at the State Farm Center. In fact, they're 3-4 at the State Farm Center against AP number 1. So you're talking about 0-19 or 0-18 away.
So they've played 25 number 1 teams, and 18 of them have come in true road games or neutral sites.
I believe that's correct. There might be one of those that was in Champaign but not at State Farm Center, so like pre-1963. I believe that's what the stat is actually. I think it's 3-4 at State Farm Center, 0-1 in Champaign but not at State Farm, and then whatever the 0-17.
I was going to say,
road or neutrals.
When you originally brought that up, 8 seems kind of low, but maybe it isn't. So 8 times welcoming the number 1 team, and it feels like maybe, you're talking, what, over 60 years? Yeah. It seems like a low number. I guess you need to put into perspective just how rare it is to have it all align where the number one team in the country is on your schedule and you get them at home. But that seemed kind of low. But I guess Illinois has just gotten a rough draw having to go on the road in some of these.
No doubt. And even as recent as last year, you played at Purdue when they were number one in the country. You played UConn in the tournament when they were AP number one. So there have been some other examples of playing number one, just you haven't drawn them here. I would say maybe if you're in the Big 12 and you see Kansas every year, that might be more of a chance. If you're in the ACC and you've been through especially the heights of Duke, you think about the Coach K reign in the early 2000s, and I know it wasn't just then. In the 90s, they were great. UNC, all those years, you'd probably be more likely to welcome in a number one, either Duke or Tar Heels squad.
It's true, yeah. I guess there's not a ton of number one teams that usually come from the Big Ten, although there was a stretch where you'd have a lot of top 3-4 teams. But you're right, yeah. Getting Kansas every year, you're probably going to, like, in 3 times in a 4-year stretch, get number one in your building.
Right. Yeah, so there might be some of that where it's the Big Ten is playing in some of that narrative or statistic because they haven't won a national title in that long, and there's obviously that's been well documented. Can we do the list real quick?
Yes.
Of the 7 previous games at State Farm Center against number one. Do a little history lesson for Kyle, and
So I was alive for 3 of these 7.
Yep, I learned some of it. I knew of the Eddie Johnson game, and we'll get to that. The ones before that I had to brush up on. But all right, last time to mention 2013, which you beat Indiana at the buzzer. I don't think anybody's going to mind if I keep mentioning that as many times as possible. Storm the court, all that. John Gross's first year, huge in turning the momentum in that season where they started fast. They won the Maui. They won at Gonzaga. Then they went on a losing skid in Big Ten play, got that win, and then I think they followed that up with a win at a ranked Minnesota team. Yes, Kyle, I know you weren't going to school here, maybe didn't watch the Big Ten as closely. There were times where Minnesota actually was ranked in the top 25, as crazy as that sounds, and made it to the tournament that year, ultimately for the Illini. 2011 lost to number one Ohio State. That was 73-68. Again, Jared Solinger and company. Illinois led at halftime. They were in a battle all the way to the finish. I mentioned last time I brought that up. Jeremy Richmond, I think, had 20 and 10 off the bench for the Illini, a team that high hopes with that roster construction. Ultimately, I've said it a number of times, but Myers Leonard, Jeremy Richmond, paired with Brandon Paul, DJ Richardson, paired with McCamey and Tisdale and Davis, and just never hit that peak that you thought it would be. 04-05 beat number one Wake Forest, the most memorable season of my lifetime, certainly. And as you learned today, I am 34 years old. That was 91-73 over Chris Paul and the Demon Deacons, Illinois. That was their arrival moment nationally as we're the best team in the country, and obviously went unbeaten all the way until that regular season finale in Columbus. Before that, you have to go all the way back to 1979. Kyle, Eddie Johnson, game winner with 3 seconds left to beat number one Michigan State.
Had to be Magic Johnson's team, right?
That would be Magic Johnson. The final of 57-55. Magic Johnson and company went on to win the national championship against Larry Bird, Indiana State. So impressive one. And I know those that got a chance to see that shot by Eddie Johnson. Of course, you have the Nick Anderson shot at Indiana. You got the buzzer beater there. You got the Eddie Johnson one there. Those are on a very short list. The Andy Kaufman against Iowa. Those are very kept in a special place in Illini memory as far as that goes. It's a reference page, and you can see the NBA logos next to how many players ended up playing in the NBA. And I know that it's been mentioned before. How many there was in that. The year of the Flying Illini versus Michigan, like that Michigan team had like 6 of them. Look up Indiana's roster from 75 or 76, and you'll see. I think it was 7 that I counted. Ultimately, they were 29-0 in the regular season, and then lost in the Elite Eight back in 1975. The first one at State Farm Center, 1965, lost to number one Michigan, 80-79. That Michigan team ended up being the national runner-up. Cazzie Russell, famous name as their starting, I believe, point guard. And big time player for the Wolverines. So that's kind of the long history of it, but a short list relatively over those 60-plus years. And you'll add to it tomorrow at State Farm Center. What will that result be? Kyle and I will pick that later in the show. As for the point spread, it's a tight one. It's 3.5.
Started a little bigger, didn't it?
Is that right?
I thought it was closer to 5.5 or something.
Oh, wow.
At one point. Might be wrong on that. I thought it feels like a spot where a lot of people probably will back Illinois. Big home spot, Hype Saturday.
Take some of the points on you, yeah. Kyler asked, was Ohio State ranked in the Brandon Paul 43-point game? I think they were top 5.
They were 4th or something like that.
I think they were. And there have been a lot of those over the years. Illinois playing a Big Ten team ranked in the top 5, top 10. And, yeah, I think that Kyle's right. They were like 4th or 5th when Paul went on that epic heater. 217, doesn't Court Storm kind of say they are on a different level than us? I almost don't want us to storm. Like, we are an elite team. We were an Elite 8 team last year and have been Big Ten champions. Yeah, okay, so I get that. I get that standpoint of it. And I even remember after the Ayo Dosunmu daggers against Michigan State his freshman year and they storm against Michigan State. I think Brad, I don't know if he said it in the presser or whatnot, but it was kind of like, if my memory serves me correctly, he's kind of like, I want to get to the point where we're not storming because we expect to beat these guys. We're on their level. But I just mentioned in 62 years you've played number one. Yeah. It will be 8 times. Let the students in the Orange Crush, let them make a memory. Let them go do that. Like I have got no problem with Illinois right now is as good as this team, which we've talked a ton about, which I think a lot of national people have agreed with. I mean, they've been preseason like kind of dark horse Final Four picks for a couple of people. It's not like anybody's going to be like, oh, Illinois. This team's not going anywhere. Are they a bubble team? Yada, yada, yada. I think everybody would recognize and appreciate how good Illinois still is and can be while being like they just beat number 1. They're not currently ranked themselves.
Yeah.
And it was just let's make an event and a memory out of this game. So I got no problem if they decided to rush the court afterwards and celebrate. I mean, it's finals week too. Like let the students, they need this.
Badly need it. Yeah. Speaking from experience, I'm not going to be storming, but yeah, I think a lot of students could use a moment like that. I honestly don't think it would happen unless it was number 1. There's just something about the number 1 team in the country coming to your building. Now, I know a lot of other schools storm for top 10, whatever it is. I do think for Illinois, like number 1 is a unique situation to where if it was number 4 Tennessee coming in, I'm not sure it would be the same. I do think with how rare, and you just went through it, it is to have the number 1 team in the country. I think Tennessee is actually worthy of being number 1 in the country as well. It's not one of those week 2 of the season, this team was overrated preseason. I'd be shocked if Tennessee wasn't a top 5 team at the end of the year. I think that's what really drives it. Beating number 1 at home, especially with a team that's not themselves currently in the top 5 as like a true national title favorite type of team themselves. I think it's more than worth it.
Yeah, and maybe I've softened up over the years. I've probably been a guy that was more into like being part of the court storming police. It doesn't matter as much to me now. Plus, again, I think number 1 makes it justified for Illinois. I think regardless of how much I wanted to get involved in it, I don't feel like I would take a really staunch angle against it. If people in the Crush or if Brad or somebody from the program whispered to the security people like, hey, we don't want them to storm the court. We want to act like
good luck stopping them.
Yeah, good luck. That's true. That's a good point. And I don't see the Crush being like, you know what? Let's not have fun. Let's not have the most fun possible and run out on this court. So, yeah, no, I think Kyle's right. I think Kyle calling his shot is if they win, they're going to storm. I think he's correct, and I don't have a problem with it. That's kind of the bottom line of it.
I know we did the exercise when Illinois had the Kansas game and then the Michigan game. I think we kind of did it both times. Where does this game rank in terms of top home games at Memorial Stadium since blank? Where does this one rank in terms of home games at State Farm Center since that 05 season? I don't think it's number 1 because I do think the chance to win the Big Ten when you hosted Iowa to end the year in 2022 probably still tops it. Is it number 2?
It might be.
I know you mentioned earlier this week the Eric Gordon game.
Yeah.
Probably tough to top that one, too.
Yeah, Lon brought that one up, and that was a good call for sure. As far as I remember sitting way up in what used to be C-section, now the 200 level, and the environment for that one, and just how much like disdain and venom was in the building that game, and it was reported like people were throwing. Was it battery? I don't know, batteries. I think it was the Philadelphia Phillies fans. They're throwing stuff, popcorn or whatever at the Gordon family. That was something for sure. I think the last game against Iowa in 2019-20, right before the season got canceled. Now, obviously, everybody in the building didn't know what was about to happen, but it was such a huge game because it was for a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. I remember when we discussed this, you brought that up. Also, it was the first time seeing Iowa again since the brush up and the handshake line, and just how good that rivalry was. The characters in, I mean, Luka Garza and Wieskamp and Bohannon and the McCaffreys with Illinois at full strength, of course, Io and Kofi and Trent and Andres Felice and all of that. So,
would you put this one ahead of last year's Purdue game? I think I would, because Illinois was out of the Big Ten title picture at that point last year. It was still a huge game. I remember the buildup was massive to host Purdue. But I think the week before when Illinois lost to Penn State, that ended any chance of them winning the Big Ten with the win. So it was more so just a big, I guess, similar to this one, just a big regular season game. I don't know. I feel like number 1 coming to town in December might top that one from last March.
I agree with you on that. I would put that ahead of it. I know when Arizona came to town, it was a big game. They were top 10, I believe, in the country, but it's not number 1. So you might be onto something. It might be number 2 behind and what a wild day that was. The win the Big Ten day where you flip on I remember flipping that game on at Kohl Center, Nebraska and Wisconsin. Like, we know how this is going to end. Oh, Nebraska's a little feisty. Yeah, but it's not going to last.
I had spent the whole Tuesday or Wednesday night, whenever it was the week prior, watching that Wisconsin-Purdue game, getting my hopes up, and then Chucky Hepburn hits that banked-in, falling away shot for Wisconsin to clinch their share of the Big Ten. I'm like, of course.
That's right.
And now they got Nebraska on the last day of the year. Of course. That was a wild day, just the flip. I'm sure I'd love to hear your perspective on it. Going into that game, like, okay, well, Illinois, Iowa, this should be fun. All of a sudden, within the span of like 20 minutes, Illinois could win their first Big Ten title since 2005 right now.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I remember just after the game talking to the players and the coaching staff to see like they were all in the training room just kind of like getting gravitated to that game as it got later and later into like realizing that they were going to have a real chance, and to see them kind of have a rush to then set up for like a celebration where then I forget the story. Someone texted in 217-359-2255, Max Twin City Recycling text line, if you can remember how it goes. But did they have a trophy in town? Like, did they have one there? Did they have to drive one down from?
Well, it got there by the end.
Right. It got there in time, but I don't think it was just chilling at the start of that day in Champaign. I don't believe. Someone is going to have to fill me in if I'm wrong, but I remember getting there early, as I always do, to the State Farm Center, and they were like setting up the confetti guns, and in the case that Illinois did win, they were going to have to get that ready to go. That was not part of the initial preparation. Not to say it completely blindsided to them, but I think everybody was like, all right, we probably don't need this. We probably don't need to. Wisconsin's going to win, and this will all be for nothing. But
that Nebraska team was terrible too, weren't they? Like, they were one of the worst teams in the conference.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Unbelievable.
And the fact that Iowa was kind of killing Illinois in the first half. So you watching that game, you're like, oh, great. We're not actually going to win now.
Yeah, Illinois was not getting stops. They were down 15 or something, like right in that first half. And like typical, not typical, but like how much of a dud that would be, where it's like, we should win the Big Ten for the first time in that long. And then you don't get it done against the Hawkeyes, but thanks to some Chris Murray.
And that Chris Murray 3.
Chris Murray 3.
When that thing went up.
Free throws by him too, right?
Was that him? Somebody, Trent Frazier, fouled a three-point shooter with like 12 seconds left or something, and if they made all three, I think Iowa was going to take the lead, and whoever it was made one of three. Was that Murray,
I think it
too?
was Chris Murray, yeah.
And then he was the one who had that wide-open look because DeMonte fell over, and I was convinced that thing was going in. There was no way that was missing. I could not believe it rimmed out.
Nebraska, by beating Wisconsin, they finished in a dead last tie with Minnesota in the standings. If they would have lost, they would have had sole possession. The one, whenever you're talking about standings, the one thing you don't want, sole possession of last place in the Big Ten. They were 3-16 in conference play.
My goodness.
Going into Kohl Center that day. How unlikely, that gives you a bit of a painted picture on that.
I do think it's got to be top three probably. Number one coming to town, because it absolutely tops the last time number one came to town, because that Illinois team was on the bubble under John Gross. That wasn't a game where you were this excited. I think everybody walked into the arena that night thinking Illinois was going to lose by double digits probably, and that was more of a shocker than anything. This is one where you're in the right position as a program to say, hey, we're welcoming number one in, but we're going to compete in this game. We've got NBA players. There's an expectation here for Illinois to maybe win this game or at least play in a really high-level game.
I agree with you on that. And we'll, of course, break down the details, the matchup, what has to happen for Illinois to be able to get that victory. If we're missing one of those games, in terms of the build-up, in terms of the pre-game emphasis and thought and hype and the excitement for the Orange Crush and the crowd and all the plans that you're probably making with your family or your buddies or whoever it might be to watch this game, heck, I wish there was like a tool to go look back up previous StubHub prices. I wonder what that's looking like. I checked a few nights ago. I think it was $100 was the cheapest ticket you could get to go over there on Saturday ultimately. But if we're missing one pre or post, I should say, 2005 and then up till now to be in that conversation, please let us know. 217-359-2255, Max Twin City Recycling text line. When we come back, we will begin to break down what challenges Tennessee presents, what makes them number one in the country, what really stands out to Kyle and I about Illinois' ability to get this game and what it would take. And then as we go along, we'll get some Brad Underwood to you. He spoke to the media today. Kasper Shakachonis also spoke to the media. I don't know if we'll play him, but we can talk a little bit about what he had to say. A guy that the NBA draft level big boards and mock drafts and the scouts are buzzing about him. Wonder if we'll see some teams in Champaign tomorrow. I would not be surprised at all. And we'll talk all about that. So lots to do as we get you ready. Illinois versus number one Tennessee tomorrow. Stick around. It is The Drive.
Are you tired of shivering in the winter? Look no further than your local heroes at ABC Heating and Air Conditioning. Hi, this is Gina inviting you to give us a call at 217-352-5400 to book your appointment to make sure your furnaces run safely and efficiently this winter. We've been proudly locally owned and operated and have been serving our community for over 50 years. ABC, always be comfortable. Call me 217-352-5400 to book your appointment today or go to abcheatingandac.com.
Good morning, First Federal Savings Bank. How may I direct your call?
Speak with friendly, real people during lobby hours. It matters when you call First Federal Savings Bank of Champaign-Urbana. A real person located at the bank. Not a recording answers your call during lobby hours. Personal, friendly service makes a difference. 217-356-BANK.
Thank you for calling. Have a great day.
Rated 5-star superior by Bauer Financial, Inc. Fast, friendly, and local with local loan decisions and underwriting. If you're not already banking with us, give us a try. We think you'll love it here. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. NMLS 435120.
Hi, it's Ellen Hook, owner of your newly remodeled Ashley. Get your home ready for the Get It Before Christmas event. We have hundreds of items in stock and ready for delivery just in time for the holidays. At Ashley, whether you need a cozy new sectional for family gatherings or the perfect dining set for Christmas dinner, plus mattresses throughout the whole store with hundreds of items in stock, we've got you covered with fast delivery. Don't miss out on these amazing deals happening now at Ashley, located at 602 West Anthony Drive, Champaign.
On the first Christmas, baby Jesus was born in a stable because God loves each of us. This Christmas, how can we show God we love Him too? Jesus said we can show our love for God by loving our neighbor. Let's make God happy this Christmas.
This is Jim Manley. Throughout this year that's been tough for so many, Empty Tomb Inc. has worked with church people to show their love for God through practical works done in Jesus' name. Clothes, food, furniture, and financial help are shared at our local neighbors' points of need. In addition, Research and Mission Match encourage churches to help our neighbors globally too. Your gift to Empty Tomb now will help people in our local area at their points of need all through the new year. Please send your check to Empty Tomb in Champaign, Illinois, or go to emptytomb.org to donate. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, baby Jesus.
And Merry Christmas to you too.
We all have a mission in life, something that drives us to explore, to grow, to love. And when we discover it, we're made whole. At OSF Healthcare, we want you to be the best you possible. We're here for you on your schedule to make your life just a little bit easier. Whatever your mission is, we're here to support it. Your life, our mission. Learn more at osfhealthcare.org/mission.
This holiday season, you can help light the way for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities by donating to DSC's Tree of Hope. The Tree of Hope is more than just a symbol of light. It's a beacon of possibility. Each light on the tree represents hope and a step towards a brighter future for people with disabilities. Visit dsc-illinois.org to make your donation before January 31st. Join in today to be part of the hope that shines brightly for all. dsc-illinois.org.
So when was the last time you saw a best deal guarantee?
You mean a promise that actually held up?
Right.
That some unknown online entity didn't want you to log in and download a code and then re-verify as you join some club.
Drives you nuts, I know.
And then once you purchase that set of steak knives...
Well, Dick Van Dyke Appliance World is a lot simpler. You find a verified great deal and they beat it. Just show them the deal you saw. A newspaper clipping or the online cart price will do, and then you're good.
At Dick Van Dyke Appliance World, it's one of those instances where you see a best deal guarantee and...
you get the best deal.
This is Dennis Reekin, chairman of Dick Van Dyke Appliance World. Our exclusive 10-year protection plan comes free with most appliance purchases. Whether it's a GE, Whirlpool, Frigidaire, Bosch, or any of our 30 brands, I guarantee we will beat any competitor's deal. Wow!
Dick Van Dyke Appliance World. When you buy from us, you get the whole store.
Flooring Surfaces has a brand new showroom. You'll see beautiful products displayed in new and exciting ways, with inspiration around every corner. Enjoy a modern floor covering experience in a space designed to showcase what Flooring Surfaces does best. Premium flooring options, free design assistance, free expert advice, and professional installation services. Now in a showroom that's easy to shop. Visit today at 401 Mercury Drive in Champaign.
Flooring Surfaces, your first stop.
Thank you for choosing 2 Men and a Truck. How may I help you?
Hi, I have a strange question. I'm moving my business. Can we stay open while we're moving?
That's not strange at all. With over 10 million moves completed, we understand that moving your business can be a daunting task. We offer a range of services that help keep your business running during the relocation process. We can help you pack, move, and unpack so you can focus on what matters most, your business.
Not sure how your move is going to work? Go to twomenandatruck.com for your free estimate.